Today on NewsWatch, the first presidential debate is over. Was there a winner? Today, our CBN News political team brings us the highlights. Plus, running on empty, why Alaska's energy industry is struggling, and what it means for so many hardworking Americans. And the miracle of Aliyah, the return of the Jewish people to the land of promises, continues. Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Caitlin Burke. The first presidential debate between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump is in the books. As expected, the evening got personal and bitter at times, both candidates trying to take their opponent down a notch. CBN's David Brody and Jenna Browder have our team coverage from Hofstra University in New York.
The debate for the ages turned into one full of arguing. Trump played aggressor from the start, portraying Clinton as a long-term failed politician.
You've been doing this for 30 years. Why are you just thinking about these solutions right now?
Well, actually, I have thought about this quite a bit.
Yeah, for 30 years.
Mr. Trump,
typical politician, all talk, no action.
On the controversial Trans-Pacific Partnership trade deal, Trump lowered the boom on Clinton, switching positions.
You called it the gold standard of trade deals. You said it's the finest deal you've ever seen.
No.
And then you heard what I said about it, and all of a sudden you were against it.
Well, Donald, I know you live in your own reality, but that is not the facts. I have a feeling that by the end of this evening, I'm going to be blamed for everything that's ever happened.
Why not?
Why not? Yeah, why not? Just join the debate by saying more crazy things.
All night, policy took a back seat to the hostilities building between these two the past few months. Clinton continued questioning why Trump won't release his tax returns.
Or maybe he doesn't want the American people, all of you watching tonight, to know that he's paid nothing in federal taxes.
I will release my tax returns against my lawyer's wishes when she releases her 33,000 emails that have been deleted. As soon as she releases them, I will release.
As the debate moved on, Trump had to play defense on a number of topics, like the birther issue.
He has really started his political activity based on this racist lie.
Later, it got even more personal as Trump repeated one of his most provocative comments.
She doesn't have the look. She doesn't have the stamina. I said she doesn't have the stamina. And I don't believe she does have the stamina to be president of this country.
That led Clinton to point out Trump's past statements against women.
But this is a man who has called women pigs, slobs, and dogs.
There is always so much to sift through after a huge debate like this, and it all starts afterwards in the spin room. And that is where we find my colleague Jenna Browder. Jenna.
Thanks, David. Well, after a debate like this one, everyone has an opinion, but whose will get the most traction?
I thought it was a great night for Donald Trump. He stood toe-to-toe with Secretary Clinton, who was, nothing but trying to come up with one zinger after the next. And I think he toed the line. He showed the American people that he was ready to be president.
I think tonight Secretary Clinton was able to lay out her plans, and she showed that she came prepared to talk about the difficult challenges facing this country with solutions that I think will enable all Americans to believe that she is prepared to lead us in the 21st century.
Two sides, two stories. The Clinton camp pushing the narrative that Donald Trump came unhinged.
I don't think he presented a coherent vision for where he wants to take the country. I think he got dragged down into defending himself. I think he's so narcissistic that for him, when he's challenged on a misstatement or a wrong position he's taken in the past, he just dwells on trying to convince people of his all-knowingness.
Trump surrogates, meantime, say the businessman held his own.
I'd say the clear matchup on the economy, the clear matchup on trade. I think those were very clear contrasts. I think also that Mr. Trump spoke forthrightly with people and spoke with clarity and conviction.
The next debate is less than 2 weeks from now in St. Louis. And to give you an idea of just how important these debates are, a new poll shows they will help roughly half of all voters make up their minds. In New York, Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Swollen rivers and creeks have prompted evacuations and curfews in Iowa and Wisconsin, flooding threatening thousands of residents and businesses. Over the past week, thunderstorms have dumped heavy rain over the region. Charlene Aaron has the story.
Residents in Cedar Rapids are facing the threat of dangerous flooding as the Cedar River is expected to crest at 23 feet today. More than 10,000 people have been evacuated from homes and businesses.
We have pretty much all of our essential things. Pretty much all of our clothes are with us, so we have her bed. Our bed's still upstairs, but whatever, that's fine.
City officials urged residents to evacuate their homes over the weekend as floodwaters began to spill out of the swollen Cedar River. On Monday, the river level reached 20 feet and was quickly rising. City employees and volunteers have tried to mitigate damage from flooding and warn that people were still under significant risk if they did not abandon the areas near the river. The city is taking the flood threat seriously after major floods in 2008 caused millions of dollars in damage when the Cedar River crested over 31 feet. More than 500 city blocks were damaged in that flood.
We spent the day moving things from 3 feet up to 5 feet and then 8 feet, and we needed 10 feet. So, but now we had many more volunteers.
In San Antonio, Texas, this aerial footage shows massive flooding, and the threat of flash flooding remains as heavy rains continue to hammer the region. Meanwhile, in Iowa, hundreds of volunteers are installing barriers and sandbags on both sides of the river ahead of more flooding. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
9 drivers were injured when a shooter targeted them in a Houston neighborhood Monday. Police say the man accused of randomly shooting at them had 2 weapons and more than 2,500 rounds of live ammunition. He's been identified as Nathan Desai, a disgruntled lawyer, and he was shot and killed by police. Authorities say he was wearing military-style apparel with Nazi emblems during the attack. Police found vintage military items and other guns in his condo. Residents of Burlington in Washington state held a candlelight vigil Monday night for victims of the mall shooting there. Hundreds of mourners gathered, singing Amazing Grace and lighting candles to remember the 5 lives taken by the shooter.
Tonight we have an opportunity to physically and spiritually shine light in the darkness.
I lost a dear friend, so that's why we're here. Knowing that my buddy lost his girlfriend, and it touched me hard. It really hit me hard.
The suspect, Arkansas teen, has admitted to the shooting, but his motive is unclear. His family says he struggles with mental illness. Monday was his first day in court. He faces life in prison if convicted. Religious leaders in Charlotte are demanding a federal investigation of the police. This after a black man was shot and killed by an officer there last week. The North Carolina NAACP president, Reverend William Barber, spoke to members of the Little Rock AME Zion Church Monday night. He asked for the entire Charlotte-Mecklenburg police force to be reviewed, calling the situation a state of emergency.
Governor, there is a state of emergency. There is a state of emergency in racism. There's a state of emergency in poverty. There's a state of emergency in inequality.
More footage from the shooting will reportedly be released soon. A new law in Norway means children as young as 6 years old can choose their gender. Until July, Norway was one of 32 European countries that required people to undergo irreversible sterilization before their gender change would be legally recognized. 10-year-old Anna is one of 9 children who have taken advantage of the new measure. It allows Norwegian children to self-identify as male or female with their parents' consent.
In some weeks, I'm going to have a new passport, and then it's going to say F. My name is Anna, and yeah. So that's going to be great.
I think it's a beautiful thing that Norway finally can recognize her as the girl she actually feels she is.
So far, Norway has not refused a single gender application for an adult or child. There's no requirement for surgical or psychological intervention or approval. Legal officials say the process is simple. Applicants just go online and fill out a form. A new version of the SAT college entrance exam debuted this year. The College Board says nearly 1.4 million students took the newly redesigned test between March and June. Average score numbers won't be released until next year when there's been a full year's worth of data gathered, but the new test focuses more on real-world vocabulary and classroom learning. Coming up, see how the miracle of Aliyah continues from the high seas to the streets of Jerusalem. Every summer, thousands of Jews from around the world come to resettle in Israel. It's a tough transition, especially from Western nations. So why do they do it? Here's a story about one new immigrant family from America and several other newcomers from the U.S. and Canada.
It's called Aliyah, Hebrew for going up, or immigrating to Israel. That's what Neil Bryn and his family did just 3 weeks after he completed 20 years in the U.S. Navy.
The highest position I had was the commanding officer of a U.S. warship. I was the commanding officer of the USS Carter Hall, which was an amphibious ship about 200 meters long.
Bryn, his wife Shoshana, and 4 young children now live in this religious neighborhood of Jerusalem. Some might say they gave up a lot to live here, but they say they're home. Bryn spent his summer accompanying his 4-year-old twins to school on the public bus. Because they don't have a car, well, sort of.
We do have a car. It's got 4 wheels, all right? It's got 1 seat. Only one person can sit in it, and that's Yudi, who's 5 months old. The propulsion system is human legs attached to arms. It's a stroller. That's our car. It holds everything we need if we need to go shopping, and we can take it everywhere, even up the steps.
About 8 years ago, Bryn's life took on major changes. He became more religious, met Shoshana, and married. They knew they would come to Israel at some point, just not when.
We didn't know if I'd stay in the Navy for 20 years or for 30 years. If I stayed in 30 years, I'd make 2.4 more times retirement pay every month. It's a tremendous difference. But the trade-off is, this is where we want to live. This is our home. This is where we feel every Jew needs to be. And our children will learn the language so much better at the ages of between 5 months, 3.5, and our twins who were 4, than if it was 10 years later.
They've faced other adjustments as well.
I'm a little bit astounded about how litter appears to be accepted, commonplace, and even not just tolerated, but applauded, it appears to me. So I've organized a weekly cleaning project, and we do that every Friday.
He got the idea from the time he was the executive officer of a ship.
The idea of doing it, calling it Our Power, is something I got from my old ship when I was captain of the USS Carter Hall. And I'm hoping this will be a habit that stays and can really clean the space up. We go from just picking litter to maybe actually cleaning. I mean, these stone stairs could look like clean stone as opposed to, stone with weeds here and dirt here. Now I'd have to say, bypass the dirt, let's pick up the spoon instead. But eventually we can really have a neighborhood that shines.
So why would they give up life in America?
I can't tell you why some people would move, but I can tell you why a Jew would. Because we have a national anthem called Hatikva, and it says in it, which means the hope, and it says in Hatikva that as long as the heart of the Jew beats, I don't know that I can quote it exactly, but as long as the heart of the Jew beats, this 2,000-year dream is just finally being realized.
The mission of the organization is to facilitate any individual who has this dream, who has this yearning, who wants to move and build their future here in Israel and contribute to Israeli society.
Rabbi Yehoshua Faz and his organization Nefesh B'Nefesh helped make the dream become reality for Bryn and his family.
We have this modern-day miracle of the state of Israel that is just unfathomable. It's fantasy stuff. The 2,000 years of wandering and dreaming, and all of a sudden you can get on a plane and change your status and become a citizen of this country. It's incredible.
223 North American immigrants arrived on a flight weeks after Bryn, including 75 young people who came to join the Israel Defense Forces, the IDF. One of them was Nefesh B'Nefesh's immigrant number 50,000, Rebecca Glanzer from Brooklyn, New York.
There's a feeling of belonging here that you really don't have anywhere else, and I just couldn't see myself spending the rest of my life in any other place, so I'm here. IDF service is part of what makes Israel such a united country and what makes everyone feel like it's really their own. So I didn't feel like I could make Aliyah without participating and contributing in that way.
Different reasons brought these newcomers to Israel.
It's something I've dreamed about doing since I was 7 years old.
I think Israel has a right to be a country, and I want to do what I can to make sure that it stays a country as long as possible.
I went to Poland and I saw the concentration camps, I saw the ghettos, and it became so much more real to me. And my purpose for coming to the Army, I think, is that I want to help protect the one place that I know, God forbid it ever happens, there's a place that's safe for the Jewish people.
But Tammy and Jean Berman from Washington, D.C., who decided to retire here, summed up the reason for coming home.
It's our destiny. We're Jewish. America's wonderful, fantastic country. I love it. My parents were immigrants to America, but we're visitors there. We belong here.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Up next, not everyone is overjoyed with lower prices at the pump. See how the low price of oil has left thousands of workers in Alaska jobless. The state of Alaska runs on oil. That industry makes up 90% of the state's budget, and its jobs pay 2.5 times higher than any other. Now, thanks to almost a year of low oil prices, Alaska's money-making industry appears to be drying up, and massive layoffs are reshaping the lives of thousands. Americans hit the road in droves this summer thanks to lower prices at the pump. But that relief comes with a cost. A worldwide surplus of crude oil is forcing American energy producers to shut down projects and lay off workers.
Our members started seeing in 2015 that we were going to come to a point of very low oil prices. And so they started restructuring a little bit and looking for efficiencies in their businesses and they started doing reductions in services. Then they looked at reductions in benefits and wages. And then they hit the point probably about 6 months ago of layoffs, significant layoffs.
Economists in oil-rich Alaska predict the loss of more than 2,000 good-paying jobs by the end of the year.
When you've laid off that many people in the highest paying jobs in the state, right, the average salary is $135,000 a year, there aren't opportunities here yet. I mean, they will come back, but they're just not available right now.
As a well service technician on the North Slope, Braun Salmon made a good living.
All I had to do was show up at work, do my job for 2 weeks, and then come home. No phone calls, no email, undivided attention. It provided me time to go out on field trips with the kids, volunteer at the school.
He's been out of work since February. Salmon's wife Jody works at Talkeetna Elementary School, and summer break meant no paychecks. Thankfully, students are back, and so is the family's sole source of income.
I mean, we're making it. We're paying the bills, and the kids are eating, and so we have a local food bank that helps out families, and they've helped us out, which is great. And then we volunteer when we can to go help them out.
Salmon saw the warning signs when his company didn't hire the usual number of workers for the winter season, but he was assured his job was safe.
In December, BP came out and made an announcement that all the work on the books was still supposed to go as scheduled, that there would be no more reason to lay anybody off. Everything was going to be fine come the first of the year. And then, of course, the first of the year came out and they announced that they were cutting back most of the programs. They were laying down rigs. And then in late February, that's when I got laid off with about 180, 200 people total.
After working the slopes for the last 8 years, Salmon knows the volatility of the oil industry, changing jobs 3 times because of various slowdowns. Now he may have to start over, as job prospects look worse than he's ever seen.
There's such a large number of applicants to every job. I mean, I've applied consistently, but I'm going to be 50 this year. And I know that plays, even though it's not supposed to, I know that plays into HR when they're looking at someone that's going to be doing work on the slope.
Experts like Rebecca Logan with the Alaska Support Industry Alliance say oil jobs are slowly coming back, but they haven't yet reached Alaska.
It's always challenging here because we have such a challenging environment to work in, and so for companies to invest here, they need to have a higher price of oil than they would in other areas.
For me, I'm at the point where we have to consider, is this really something that we want to try and stick with and do it again? Or do I do something different.
Salmon fills his time with projects around the house.
Keeps your mind off the reality of what's going on or what's not happening in that part of your life. And I tend to try to focus on what am I doing today, but when I'm paying bills, that's the hard part.
Salmon is worried oil companies will continue to lay off seasoned and experienced workers, hiring younger workers at lower pay, and drastically increasing the accident rate.
I wouldn't recommend anybody go to do it, honestly, at this point. If they were telling me they had other options, I would say, well, I would go with the other options.
A decision forced upon Salmon and thousands of other workers.
Since I spoke with Salmon in Alaska, he's found a full-time job as the maintenance man and custodian at the local elementary school where his wife works. While he's thankful for that work, his paycheck is only half of what it was working on the slopes. Stay with us. We'll be right back. CBN Superbook has made its way into schools in Wales. CBN has partnered with Sporting Marvels, a Welsh team that tells students about Jesus. Since January of 2015, students have been using curriculum with Superbook's design and content. It's taught in 17 schools and covers Old and New Testament heroes, as well as how to live as a Christian. Thanks to Superbook, 2,000 children have been taught and over 1,000 children's Bibles have been handed out. That's it for now on CBN NewsWatch. You can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care about most at cbnnews.com. And tell us what you think about the stories you've seen here. You can do that on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Have a great day.